So far, we have used methods without parameters. In fact, parameters are very convenient to use. Here is an example. Run IntelliJ IDEA. Create a new class and call it test. In this class, create a method square10 without parameters. It will return data of int type. This method will return number 10 squared. And you will admit, it's not a very useful method. All it does is returning number 10 squared. And what if we need 11 squared? It might seem we would have to create separate methods for number 11 and for all other numbers. For such situations, we have methods with parameters. Let's alter this method so that it accepts parameters. Within the round brackets, write the number to be squared. Call it I. Let's change the name of this method to square. And it will return I squared. I multiplied by I. Now let's call this method from method main. Open class main. We will delete this code above the boxes. Create a new object of test class. And call method square from within it. As a parameter, we will pass 80. Let's save this value into a variable, int square. Now let's print out this variable on the console. Run the code. We can see 6,400. It's 80 squared if we pass any other number. For example, 15, the program will return 225, which is 15 squared. Doesn't this method remind you of anything? Do you remember the method we used for calculating the square root? We wrote double sqrt, assign symbol, math.sqrt, and as the parameter we passed a number, the square root of which we wanted to know. That method is exactly a method with a parameter. It accepts a number of the double type and returns the square root of this number, and it's of the double type too. Now let's take a look at our box class. It doesn't seem very convenient now because we have to assign values manually to every variable. And what if we miss one of them? We can create a method which accepts 3 parameters: length, width, and height, and assign these values to our variables. Let's create a new method. It will only assign values, and accordingly, it will not return anything. Specify the type, void, call it setDemands. The parameters will be 3 values we are going to pass. The width, double type, double width. The height, double height, and the length, double length. Let's assign these values to our variables. Write width, assign symbol, and since our variable is also called width, we have a problem. We are using the same names in both the instance variables names and as the parameters. We can solve this problem by changing the names of the parameters. For example, double A, double B, double C. We will now assign value A to our variable width, value B to variable height, and value C to variable length. But then it will be hard to understand what data mean what. Which of these numbers stands for length, width, and height? There's another solution. To let the program know what we're addressing nothing else but the instance variables, we can use keyword this. Write this dot operator, and now we can specify the variable to be called. This width, this height, this length. Let's return the initial names to our variables, width, height, and length. Now we will assign the values of our parameters to our instance variables. Now it does not matter that the names of the instance variables and parameters are identical, because the program understands where it has to use these or those values. It takes the instance variables because we have instructed it to do it by the keyword this, and assigns them the values of the parameters width, height, and length. Now let's get back to method main, delete our test, and create a new box. Box, assign symbol, new box. Now we can assign it values using method setDimens. Write box.setDimens. Using correct names in the parameters has one more advantage. We can press Ctrl+P and see in which order we must assign values. First, we will specify width, then height, and then length. Let all the parameters equal 15. Now we can calculate the volume and print it out on the console. Types out. We will not create a separate variable for the volume. Instead, we will use box.volume to be passed as an argument to method systemoutprintln. In this case, method volume will calculate the volume and return it, and method systemoutprintln will display it. Run the program and see that the volume is 3,375. Our lesson is over. At home, you will create class rect, which stands for rectangle. It will contain two fields, length and width. There should be three methods. The first one with parameters. It will accept as parameters the length and the width, and it will relate them to our rectangle. The second method must be without parameters. It will return the perimeter of the rectangle. The third method will also be without parameters. It will return the square of the rectangle. And you will have to create the object rectangle in class main and show the work of all these methods. See you in our next lesson.